Shalom everyone, and today we're going to study Sefer Kohelet that we will read this Shabbat, Shabbat Chol HaMoed Sukkot. The story of Kohelet, the story of the book, is a very interesting story. When you read this Book of Kohelet, obviously you ask yourself, why should we read it on Shabbat Chol HaMoed Sukkot, in the middle of Sukkot? And the content itself of Sefer Kohelet, A, it's very complicated, B, it's somewhat even sad. It talks a lot about hevel, vanity, and things that are meaningless. And also, why would Shlomo, King Solomon, would write something like that? We will try to touch on some of those questions, and really will try to focus on the meaning of life. The book of Kohelet begins with the following verse: Divrei Kohelet ben David, Melech b'Yerushalayim. And it's interesting, these are the words of Kohelet, the son of David, who was a king in Yerushalayim. Now we see that the name of Shlomo HaMelech is not mentioned here. Unlike, for example, Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, that we recite during Shabbat Chol HaMoed Pesach. There it says, Shir HaShirim Asher Lishlomo, the Song of the Songs that belongs to King Solomon. Here, the Pasuk does not really mention his name. So why do we think that it's King Solomon? Because it says Ben David, the son of David, who was the king over Jerusalem. So obviously we understand that the association with Shlomo is pretty clear, but it's not mentioned in the first Pasuk of the Sefer itself. But rather we call him Kohelet. What does that mean? So the Midrash immediately addresses this issue, and he says, Lama nikra Shmo Kohelet? Why was his name was Kohelet? Just call him Shlomo. That's his name. So it says, Shehayu dvarav ne'emarin be'akel, al shem she'amar, az yakhel Shlomo. Which means, the word Kohelet means kahal, congregation, but also akel, which means to gather people together. So basically, King Solomon would recite those thoughts that he had in Sefer Kohelet in the public. It was not a private conversation he had with someone. It was not only his thoughts, but rather he would address the nation. So it means to us that A, King Solomon thought that it's really important for everyone to listen to it. B, we all know that when you talk to a nation, when you talk to a big crowd, a large crowd, you fully understand as a speaker that there are people who have more knowledge, some people have little less knowledge, some people have more background, some people have less background. You understand that whatever you're going to say can be understood differently by different people, which means that Sefer Kohelet has layers, which means there is the basic layer, which should be understood to everyone. But if you dig deeper and deeper, you probably will find hidden treasures, hidden lessons that will help you in your own life. So that's why he's called Kohelet. What does it mean, Ben David, the son of David? So the Midrash says, Melech ben Melech, a king, a son of a king. So he comes from dynasty. Chacham ben Chacham, a wise person, a son of a wise person. Tzaddik ben Tzaddik, he was righteous, he's the son of the righteous king, King David. Tani Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Ashrei mi shezacha limloch bimkom malchut. So Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, who was a Tana towards the end of the 2nd century in Eretz Israel, he says, praise is the person who is not only the king, but is also a king in a place of kingdom, which is Yerushalayim. So, if we go back to the Pasuk, so now let's insert this Midrash to this Pasuk. Divrei Kohelet, / it's King Solomon. He is called Kohelet because this book that I'm going to share with you today says, Shlomo, it's for everyone. Everyone can find something there that can help him or her to better their lives. Ben David, listen to me. I'm a son, I'm a king, a son of a king. I know royalty, I understand dynasty, I understand wealth and diplomacy and politics and power and plenty. I understand all of that. B'Yerushalayim. And I am a king over the city of Jerusalem. The city that this is the throne for God himself. So therefore, listen to me. So that's what the Midrash is basically trying to tell us. So with this wonderful introduction, we would expect that Sefer Kohelet would be something that, at least superficially, it would be very easy to understand. And then, as I said before, you can dig deeper and get hidden messages. But basically, there is going to be a book, a straightforward book. The problem is that it's not. The Babylonian Talmud in Tractate Shabbat in page 30a says the following: An Shlomo, An Chochmatach, An Suchlatunach. Hey, Shlomo, King Solomon, you are the wisest person on earth. But where is your wisdom? Where is your knowledge and understanding and insight? לא דייך שדבריך סותרים דברי דוד אביך. Not only that what you say contradicts what your father said, King David, אלא שדבריך סותרים זה את זה. But when we read Sefer Kohelet, it's mutually exclusive. You say one thing at the beginning of the Sefer, of the book, and then you contradict it at the other chapter of the book. So, King Solomon, what's wrong with you? You contradict your father, whatever your father said, and you also contradict yourself. And now the Gemara delineates the examples. For example, David Avicha Amar Lo Hameitim Yehaleluka. King David says in Tehillim, in Psalms, that the people who died, who perished, they cannot praise God. They are not alive. Ve'at amart, and you, King Solomon, what did you say? Ve'shabeach ani et ameitim shekvar metu. I praise the people who died. The people who died, why would you praise them? They can't be productive. So you contradict what your father said. Ve'chazarta ve'amarta ki lekelev chai hu tov min ha'aryeh hamet. And then you contradict yourself. Because on one hand you say, I praise the people who died. And then you say, it's better to be a living dog rather than a dead lion. So the dead is not better than the people who are alive. So make up your mind, Shlomo. You are the wisest person. What's wrong with you? So the Gemara says, Lo kashya. There is really no contradiction. Hadeke amar David lo hameitim yehaleluka. When King David says the dead people cannot praise God, הכי כאמר, לעולם יעסוק אדם בתורה ובמצוות קודם שימות, שכיוון שמת, בטל מן התורה ומן המצוות, ואין לקדוש ברוך הוא שבח בו. ואחי אמר רבי יוחנן, מה דכתיב במתים חופשי? כיוון שמת אדם נעשה חופשי מן התורה ומן המצוות. So, when King David says that the dead people cannot praise God, he meant a lesson to the people who are still alive. While you are alive, learn Torah, study Torah, do mitzvot, do kind deeds, because after we are dead, you will not be able to contribute anything good. And basically, you will not be an active player in the scenery, in the scene of this world. You will not be an active player in what's going on here, on this universe. And Shlomo says, ושבח אני את המתים שכבר מתו. כששחטו ישראל במדבר, עמד משה לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא ואמר כמה תפילות ותחנונים לפניו ולא נענה. So when King Solomon says that I praise the dead over the people who are still alive, he meant something else. He says, look at the Torah. When Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moses tried to pray on behalf of the Jewish people after they committed this tremendous sin of the golden calf, he tried and he prayed and God didn't listen. But when he says, Zchor le'Avraham, le'Yitzchak, u'Yisrael avadecha, but when Moshe says to Hashem, please God, remember our forefathers, Avram, Isaac, and Jacob, and they are all died already, miyad na'ana. God immediately reacted to Moshe's prayer and he says, okay, you know what? I'll forgive them. ולא יפה אמר שלמה, ושבח אני את המתים שכבר מתו? This Talmudic paragraph gives us a glimpse over King Solomon's wisdom. King Solomon understood exactly what his father said. He understood that when a person is dead, he is not an active player in what's going on here. However, King Solomon is talking about a different idea, about the merit that you create while you are alive, that carries on even after you are dead. Which means, if you do the right things here, you create a merit in Olam Haba, in the next world to come, that can still influence what's going on here on earth. So, if we analyze correctly this Talmudic paragraph, we immediately can sense that King Solomon is talking about a deeper aspects of life. If King David spoke about this life here, King Solomon is talking also not only about this life, but about the meaning of your life here and how is that going to influence not only while you are alive, but also after your death, which obviously brings up all sorts of questions of what exactly is the connection between Olam Hazeh, this world, and Olam Haba, and the next world to come. How is that exactly going to work? But this is not really the issue of our lesson. But the idea is that King Solomon is talking about, in a way, two angles, two vantage points of life. Life here, currently, right here, and how the way you lived your life here will continue to carry on in the next stage of life. So that's according to the Gemara. The Midrash in Vayikra Rabbah, which is an ancient Midrash Agadah that was composed in Israel, says the following: Amar Rabbi Binyamin ben Levi. Rabbi Benjamin, the son of Levi, says the following: ביקשו חכמים לגנוז ספר קהלת, שמצאו בו דברים שהם נוטים לצד מינות. Now, this is an accusation. If the Talmud in Shabbat, Tractate Shabbat, says that King Solomon contradicted his father and he contradicted himself, and we found a way to reconcile the contradictions, this accusation is very strong. Rabbi Binyamin ben Levi basically says that the rabbis thought about taking this book of Kohelet, take it out from Tanakh, take it out from the Bible, and put it in Gniza, in hiding. Why? Because they found that some psukim, that some verses, are basically present some kind of theories that are not what we will call Jewish. So they said it cannot be part of Tanakh. For example, אמרו, הכל חוכמתו של שלמה שבא לומר, מה יתרון לאדם בכל עמלו שיעמול תחת השמש? The rabbis were wondering, King Solomon, so smart, one of his most insightful things to say is that there is no gain in doing anything under the sun? You want to tell me, says the Midrash, יכול אפילו בעמלה של תורה במשמע? You want to tell me that there is nothing under the sun that you can do that is worthwhile? You want to tell me that learning Torah is not worthwhile? That's obviously against the Torah. We can't have it in Tanakh. So they thought about it and they said, חזרו ואמרו, לא אמר בכל עמל, אלא בכל עמלו. בעמלו אינו מועיל, אבל הוא מועיל בעמלה של תורה. So the rabbi says, no. Let's be meticulous in the verse. It says, מה יתרון לאדם בכל עמלו שיעמול תחת השמש? He didn't say, בכל עמל, everything you do under the sun is worthless. Only things that amalo, which you think benefits you. But if you will learn Torah, if you study Torah, that is beneficial. That's definitely you need to do. Okay. So obviously we have here a bit of a problem because the answer causes an issue. You want to tell me that the only thing that is worthwhile to do under the sun is to learn Torah? We obviously believe in the power of Torah. We believe in the significance of Torah study, but there are many other things that are also very meaningful, very productive. What exactly is King Solomon is trying to tell us? So let's continue on. אמר רבי שמואל ברב יצחק. So Rav Shmuel, the son of Rav Yitzchak, says, ביקשו לגנוז ספר קהלת שמצאו בו דברים שהם נוטים לצד מינות. Again, the same accusation. The rabbis look at Sefer Kohelet and they thought that some of the things that are being mentioned there are against Jewish values, Jewish fundamentals, Jewish theology. For example, smach בחור בילדותך והיטיבך לבך בימי בחורותיך והלך בדרכי לבך ובמראה עיניך. King Solomon says in Sefer Kohelet, hey, you, young man, do whatever you want. Just follow your eyes, follow your ears, do whatever you want, have fun. How can you say that when Moshe Rabbeinu says, לא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם? Moshe warned us that we shouldn't follow our eyes and just our heart, but to have restraint, to have some restrictions, not to do whatever we want. So you can see the contradiction. Something is going wrong. And especially when you know that King Solomon is so smart, you need to try to find somehow, you need to find a way to reconcile these contradictions. So then, when the rabbis dug deeper in Sefer Kohelet, they said, כיוון שאמר, ודע כי על כל אלה יביאך אלוקים במשפט. King Solomon says towards the end of Sefer Kohelet, you should know that God is going to judge you on everything you do and everything you did. אמרו, יפה, אמר שלמה. So then they said, Shlomo said something smart. How exactly that reconciled the contradiction? I would assume that what the rabbis meant to say is, King Solomon says to us, hey, young man, young woman, you can do whatever you want. The life is in front of you. Choose whatever you want to do. But you need to know that everything that you do, everything that you touch, everything that relates to your plans has ramifications to you and to others. And Hashem is going to judge everything and everyone. Not so much to create fear, it's to create awareness. It's to create awareness to the significance of what we do. There is this idea and notion, we can do whatever we want, it influences only me, who cares? There is nothing like that, who cares? King Solomon is trying to push us, to encourage us, to understand that we need to find life of meaning. And it begins with the understanding that whatever I do means something to me, to others, in this world, and in the next world to come. This is wise. This is something that not everyone can think about. Because I can think, okay, I can move this cup from here to here, it influences only me. But you know what? It might not. And I will take that example. It might that when I did it, one of you looked at that and lost concentration on the lessons, on the shiur, on the class, and focused on my cup. So I influenced someone without even knowing. But if you live your life with the awareness that you don't only live for yourself, and you don't do it just out of fear of God that is going to send the thunder against you, you live your life with the understanding that you receive a gift that it's up to you to instill it with meaning. רב הונא ורבי חלפתא ורבי אחא בשם רבי אלפאי עמלו תחת השמש ועוצרו למעלה מן השמש. Rav Huna and Rav Acha suggested when you go back to the pasuk and it says שיעמול תחת השמש, under the sun, they say whatever you do under the sun is being treasured and being storage. Where? Above the sun. Again, the same idea. Our actions are not limited to ourselves, to the others around us. It can affect people that we don't even know. And it can affect worlds and universes that we are not aware that exist. This is the power that we have in everything we do. If that was one of the lessons of King Solomon, we definitely understand why would he gather all the people. Because this message relates to everyone. Because King Solomon does not limit the effect of actions only to wealthy people, smart people, Torah scholars, other scholars. No, it's for everyone. You never know how your little deed, your little action influenced you, others, the next world, and generations to come. So that's part of the message. The Ralbag from the 14th century has an additional insight, and he says the following. הנה הודיענו בזה בתחילה, מי היה מחבר זה הספר. The Ralbag says at the beginning of Kohelet, we basically being introduced to the author of the book. ואולם התועלת המגיע מזהו, ממה שיעמידנו על כוונת המחבר בדבריו. וזה כשיתבהרו לנו דעותיו במקומות אחרים, ויראה מדבריו מה שהיה מקביל באופן מה לידיעותיו, הנה נפליג העיון בדבריו באופן שנעמוד על אמיתת כוונתו, שיהיה בלי ספק נאותית. וללא יתבהר לנו זה מהמחבר, היינו עוזבים עיון בדבריו. Basically the Ralbag says, why is that so important to know that King Solomon wrote this book? Because if it was someone else, A, we will not pay attention, and when we will see a contradiction, we will say, leave it alone. But also to understand that this person, a king, he wrote it. So he wants you to understand. He went through a lot. He has tremendous responsibilities, and he's telling you something. Take his ideas, his sayings, seriously. והודיענו שנית, איך היה אופן החיבור הזה? שאלו הדברים היו ממה שיראה בתחילת המחשבה אשר היא קהלת ומקבץ את הסותרים. והתועלת המגיע מזה הוא כשנדע אופן חיבור הדברים, נעמוד על מה שבהם מהשלמות או הופכו. So additional thing, says the Ralbag, he wants to say that the word Kohelet does not mean necessarily kahal, congregation, nation, but rather almost like a gathering of thoughts. He wants to claim, which is a very interesting perspective, that Sefer Kohelet is, in a way, King Solomon sits on his throne or in his office, and he thinks about life. He thinks about the meaning of life, the meaning of actions, the meaning of people, the meaning of humanity. All those questions that sometimes, we think that maybe when we retire we will ask those questions. King Solomon does it while he is a king, while he is active. He asks himself, okay, what's the purpose? What's the purpose of life? What's the purpose of me being here? What's my goal? What's my purpose? What should be my aspirations? And then he thinks, and when you read Sefer Kohelet, and I will highly encourage you to do it before Shabbat, there are so many thoughts there about wealth, and about love, and about friendship, and about war, and about wisdom, and about bonds, and about life, and about work, and about the balance between all of them. And King Solomon just throws some ideas, and at the end, there is somewhat of a conclusion that we will try to address. So basically the Ralbag says that ואם יתבהר לנו שכבר השלים דבריו באופן ראוי לפי מה שייעד, אז יתברר לנו שלמות דבריו ותהיה השגתנו מפני זה בדרושים מהם יותר שלמה. Basically says Ralbag, take the time to learn Sefer Kohelet. Think about the same questions that he asked. Think about the same ideas he brought and analyze them. And see if what he says it's perfect for you, it works for you, or maybe you need to add a few things. But ask the questions. I will pause here for just a second. And I would say that many ask, why should we read Sefer Kohelet on Succot, as I said before? I think part of it is exactly because of that. Succot is the time that you sit and there is plenty and everything is well. Part of that time is to ask questions. Is to ask questions about the meaning of life, the meaning of all of what I did this year. And especially after Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it's just like when everything goes well to that person after he harvested everything and he has plenty and he sits and it's a Yom Tov and he has food and wine. Specifically at times like that, we send you to the sukkah, we send you out of the house, and we're asking you to ask questions about the meaning of life, because the meaning of life cannot be just to make money so I can have more money, I can have more money. This is not meaningful. What's your meaning? You need to ask yourself. Dr. Shammai Glendner from Haifa University said something very interesting that I would like to analyze with you. He says the following: עד כמה שואף קהלת להציג את מיצוי ההווה כענייננו העיקרי? השלילה שבדבריו אינה שלילת החיים מעיקרם, הוא שולל רק אותם חיים שיש בהם משום בריחה מן המציאות וממיצוי ההווה והקיים. So he says, when you read Sefer Kohelet, and you see how many times Kohelet says, Havel avalim amar Kohelet, Havel avalim akol havel, everything is vanity, wealth is vanity, being poor is vanity, beauty is vanity, ugliness is vanity. So what is not vanity? What is not nothingness? He wants to claim that basically King Solomon says to us, don't focus only on the present time, because that's vanity. King Solomon, basically says to you that living a life only now of today is running away from reality. במובן הרחב, בריחתו של האדם מן החיים מוצאת את ביטויה במאמץ המתמיד להנציח את עצמו. This is very, very, very deep. He basically claims that the people who try to run away from reality, they are trying to root themselves, to imbue themselves where? In the present time. Because in the present, I can control it. I know exactly what is in front of me. But I don't look back because I have no control. I don't look forward because I have no control. And I don't believe that I can shape and form the future. So therefore, what do? I minimize. I focused in, I zoom in only on the present time where I can run away from reality. King Solomon says, this is not life, this is running away. במעמד זה מתגלה הניכור שבינו ובין הטבע על מערכת חוקיו. מאמציו של האדם החולף אשר מאומה לא נותר ממנו עומדים בניגוד גמול לטבע שקביעת חוקיו היא נצחית. במילים האחרות, המלצה היא שלא יטיל האדם על עצמו התחייבויות לטווח ארוך, שהרי בזאת הוא משתעבד למשימה ואולי אף לאורחות חיים, שהוא אינו יכול לצפות את התפתחותיהם או את שינוייהם. בכך הוא מאבד שוב את ההווה, אין הוא שולט בו ואינו יכול למצותו. He says that basically the people who are trying to run away from reality, they try to focus on the Hoveh, because that's more something that they can feel, that they can cement. And basically when they do that, they are losing their capabilities of doing anything productive. So therefore he says, הדבר היחידי שיש בו ממש הוא ניצולו המרבי של שטח המצוי תחת שליטתך המלאה, המצב הידוע והוודאי עדיף על פני המצב היוצר אשליות. So now he has a turning point, and he says, and you know what, maybe I'll digress for a second. When you look at the three dimensions of time, past, present, future, people who live only in the past, they are obviously not up to date, but they know a lot of history. The people who live in the future live something that might be an illusion. The only time that you can live your life with some kind of certainty is the Hoveh. So on one hand, King Solomon understands it and he pushes you to fulfill your potential in the present time, because this is the only thing that you can really fully control. But at the same time, I will argue to live your life only in the present time. This is not life. Or this is not, I would say, a way to maximize your life. When you live only in the present times without knowing where you came from and what you can aspire to, without knowing that your actions has been influenced by the past and will influence the future, I think it's life that can have more meaning. I would argue with Dr. Shammai that I'm not sure that King Solomon is telling us to focus only on the present. I think King Solomon encourages us to look at the present time, to use it, and to channel it into meaningful actions. But we need to know that we live with 3 dimensions of time. And Sefer Kohelet, I think, at least in my opinion, Sefer Kohelet is basically trying to convey to us the message that, yes, the laws of nature are stable, are eternal, and we are the ones who move through time. But this awareness comes from the understanding of the ramifications, the consequences, and the influence of every action we do. If you just live your life in the present time, not believing or not knowing or not being aware of the past and the future, I think you miss something. So, in Kohelet Rabbah suggests, it's another midrash, suggests a different thought. He says, Havel Avalim. What does it mean, Havel Avalim, which means vanity? Rabbi Yuna b'shem Rabbi Acha דוד אמר דבר אחד ולא פרשו, פרשו שלמה בנו. שלמה אמר דבר אחד ולא פרשו, פרשו דוד אביו. There is some kind of symbiotic relationship between David and Shlomo. Sometimes David would say something and Shlomo will give the interpretation, and sometimes vice versa. David אמר אדם להבל דמה. King David says in Psalms, a person is basically similar to hevel, vanity. להיזה אבל. What kind of vanity? What kind of hevel? אם להבל של תנור יש בו ממש. If you are talking about the heat that comes back from an oven, a heated oven, there is little bit of something in it. אם להבל של קירה יש בו ממש. בא שלמה בנו ופרש, הדה עוד הכתיב, אבל הבלים אמר קהלת. So basically, King Solomon says, you know what is hevel that my father says? Nothingness. There is nothing there. רבי שמואל בר נחמן, מתני בשם רבי יהושע בן כוחה, לאדם ששופט 7 גדרות זו למעלה מזו וזו למעלה מזו, והבל של עליונה אין בו ממש. It's like if you take a pot, you boil water, you put another pot, another pot, another pot, another pot, what comes at the end is nothingness. So basically, what does that mean? What does that mean? That everything we do is nothing? There is nothingness? There is nothing real that we produce? So, another aspect to Sefer Kohelet, and then we'll try to sum up and tie all those dots together, is being brought by Professor Yitzhak Gottlieb from Bar Ilan University. Obviously, his opinion is more what we will call academic, which in the academia, there is a discussion of if Sefer Kohelet was really written by Shlomo or not. It seems to be that this opinion does not exactly agree that King Solomon wrote it, but this is not the purpose of our shiur and it's not my discussion. But the idea is that I want to take the insight from this paragraph. He says, קהלת נכנס אם כן לקנון, לא מפני סובלנותם והטעם הטוב של חז"ל, ולא מפני המשגה, המשגה המוצלח של ייחוס הספר לשלמה המלך. הוא התקבל על ידי מסדרי המקרא בחוליה חיונית בשרשרת המחשבה של היהדות. And this is the important thing for me. I'm not interested now in the historical, academic discussion and rabbinic discussion of if Sefer Kohelet was written by King Solomon or not. This is not the issue. The issue is what is in that book. What is the content of the book? Because until now, we saw that the content of the book is the meaning and the significance of your actions. Is the idea that you influence yourself, the others, this world, the other world. There is some kind of reciprocity between the other world and this universe. We were talking about the 3 dimensions of time. I'm doing like a little sum up here. the three dimensions of time, the past, the present, the future. Do you need to focus on the present because you can have more control over it, no illusions, you know exactly what you get, or you need to live your life with the past, present, and future? Also, I will challenge the idea of the present. The present is what I see now, but in a second from now, it's moving into the future. Right? In every present time, you also have some kind of future time. So basically, Professor Gottlieb suggests that the idea of Sefer Kohelet is this is a part, it's a link of a chain of what we call Jewish thought. בעיני חז"ל, קהלת הציג את השאלות הנכונות בנושא משמעות האדם והחיים, אך הניח אותן בלי מענה מתוך תסכול ותמיהה. He says, according to Chazal, according to our sages, the Book of Kohelet basically presents questions that relates to the purpose of people, humanity, life, but Shlomo HaMelech, in a way, left them open. And what King Solomon did, he claims, created Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers, later on in the 2nd century. Basically, he wanted to say that Sefer Kohelet became the textbook for Jewish thought. For example, he says, בניגוד מוחלט לעמל של קהלת שאינו שכר, חז"ל הבטיחו שכר בעמלה של תורה. When you look at Sefer Kohelet and Kohelet says, אין שכר לעמל, there is no reward to the efforts that you put, Chazal, our sages in Pirkei Avot, in the ethics of the father, says what? That there is a שכר ללומדי Torah, there is a reward for people who study Torah. In a way, he claims that our sages tried to bridge the gap between King Solomon's questions, open questions, and wonders, to Pirkei Avot that basically tries to do what? To address King Solomon's questions. He claims, כל המאמרים בנוסח ביקשו לגנוז את ספר קהלת. לא באו להזהיר את הקורא שעליו ללמוד את הספר רק במסגרת הקנון המורחב של חוכמת התורה. סוף דבר של קהלת הוא אפוא ראשית חוכמה של פרקי אבות. Which means, according to him, is that Kohelet opened the gate for questions. And Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers, try to address his questions. So, first and foremost, I would like to challenge each one of you, read Sefer Kohelet and Pirkei Avot together and see how many questions are being answered and how many discussions are being created because of what Kohelet did. That's one thing. The second idea is that when we read Sefer Kohelet this Shabbat, try to ask yourself the same questions. And I think that the times that we live in are basically begging us to ask those questions. What is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of the times that we live in? What should I do? How do I look at the present time versus the past and the future? What should we do in order to shape and form a better future, a different future than the present times? How don't we repeat the same mistake we did in the past? Ask yourself those questions. This is the time. Succot, when you have so much Yom Tov, when you have this idea that you sit in the Sukkah, you eat, this is the time to ask meaningful questions. Hard questions, open questions. And sometimes the answers will change, will vary from one day to another. But it is so important to ask those questions, because without questions, you just continue to do what you did, which if it's good, it's wonderful, but it can be better. And if it's not that good, it will not get better. Sefer Kohelet is for everyone. It's deep, it's hard, it's challenging. Sometimes it might be even mutually exclusive. But it calls every one of us to pause from our lives and to ask questions. Even when life seems to be runs that they flow and there is no time, when you feel there is no time, this is the time to take a pause and to think about life, to think about your actions, This is the idea of Kohelet during Succot time. And especially in our times, this is the time to pause, to ask tough questions to ourselves, to our families, to our communities, to our leaders, and to our nation. Sof davar, hakol nishma. At the end, everyone can come up with different answers. But you need to know that whatever you do has consequences, has ramifications. So therefore, when you make a decision to do something, take it into consideration to bring more light and goodness to this universe. Chag Sameach.